Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Solitude. And we are heading back over to our island that we started in the last episode and building ourselves a massive luxury fancy hotel resort at the other end of it. A total complete opposite change to what we did last time in our rundown small island town type vibe. This is going to be luxury. So let's dive right into it, and we are going to start off with a small little staff area. So I decided to run this road alongside the edge of where the resort is going to sit and have the staff area kind of in the middle of the main area, so it wasn't super close to the main hotel part of the resort, but it was somewhere nicely positioned in the middle of it and still somewhat out of the way and out of kind of guests' minds and view. So you'll see that later on, that it's sort of hidden behind a lot of other busy things going on in this resort. So I decided to use the wall-to-wall buildings for this and made sure that they were all colour-coded, as we do throughout the zoo. You'll see later on we kind of have colour-coded sections for different residential areas. So the staff area here, I decided to have these nice blue walls. And of course we gave them a little bit of parking so that they could come and go more freely than probably the guests in the actual resort themselves. So as I mentioned last time, the way I'm styling this resort is very much as an incredibly high-end resort, the type of place that tourists would go to and not leave for their entire holiday, that maybe is a little bit rougher outside, like we tried to do with our village last time, you know, a little bit more run-down, less well-maintained, a little bit of a poorer area right outside this fancy luxury resort. So security, I think, is very important when it comes to this build. So we've got this high industrial fence wrapping the entire complex, so no one can come and go throughout the entire thing without going through various different security checkpoints, like we have at the entrance to our staff car park area over here. However, the fence running down the beach looks super duper ugly, so I decided to cover it up with a few rocks, a little bit of undergrowth and a few palm trees spilling down into the ocean, so that that kind of security feature was slightly less noticeable to some of the tourists when they're out there sitting on the beach. Of course, we then team this up by putting fencing all the way around our staff area so that it is separated from the guests. The guests can't get in here. There's a security gate to get in through the pedestrian pathway that we put in just a second as well. You know, you can imagine the staff having to put in a code to be able to get into the area. That's the sort of thing that I'm envisaging for this. And then we really just finish off the area by adding some small communal gardens around the edge of it. So as always, we're bringing the jungle solitude foliage down into the resort. However, most of our trees are going to be palm trees. It's almost exclusively palm trees, in fact, because I think that would absolutely be the case in this type of place. They're going to be planting luxurious trees and have it feel like you're really properly in a tropical location, even when you actually are. But they're going to be exclusive trees in that sense. So we just add in a few little picnic benches for the staff to sit at, of course with some sunshade, which is absolutely necessary, as we've talked about before in Solitude. And that kind of completes our staff area. We do just finish it off by adding a path that will later connect into the rest of the resort through our side security gate. And of course a few little extra rundown decals, just to give it that slightly kind of you're not in the main resort vibe out here. It's not quite as well maintained as the rest of the resort. And you may be pleased to know I do not use any of the crack decals throughout the rest of the resort. It is literally confined to just this one staff area. Okay, so let's move on to our main road network and also services as well, which we'll come on to in just a second. So I wanted to make this whole area a pedestrian area, but of course we needed to then connect that somehow into a street. And I definitely didn't want it to be on the side road leading up to the staff area. I felt like that was maybe a little bit too intrusive. So I decided to have a separate entrance using this dirt track, so it was kind of unobvious as what I was going for there, round the side of the hotel. So that's what we used there, and then of course we've used our pedestrian roads throughout the main part of the resort, because I don't want people driving around it. It's not that kind of resort. I would probably imagine there was maybe some golf buggies flying around, and I actually forgot to get golf buggy assets for this, so that's on me. But I think I will add them later on to kind of show that, yeah, people could hire a golf buggy and drive around the resort like that if they wanted to, if they were feeling a little bit lazy. So we have our pedestrian service point right at the front of the hotel, so any kind of deliveries can deliver them there, and then it's distributed throughout the resort as needed by the staff. We also added in a small office at the front, and I do add a couple more as well, because this design hotel actually needs office and commercial and lots of different things in order for it to be efficient. So I wanted to actually play with the game a little bit on this front. So yeah, we've got a few offices out the front, but I thought it was a nice touch because it could kind of seem like a bit of an admin centre for the main resort. And then of course services, like I mentioned, so we definitely want to have this area covered. It's meant to be a luxury area, so the Sims should have whatever they need. So we have a medical centre and a very small little firehouse from the workshop right in the middle of the resort. And then I decided to use the police station to act as a security guard entrance right next to our pedestrian area service depot, so the cargo depot where people can drop all the deliveries off to. And then before we get too much further into the actual build, I wanted to start adding in some of the larger assets that we're going to have throughout before we get into kind of nitty-gritty, intricate details. And one of these was definitely having condos, because I want this place to feel like a resort, as I've mentioned. So you've got various different choices in accommodation that you can have throughout the resort. So we've got the main hotel building, we've got these condos that we're putting in now. We've then got oceanfront chalets and also stilt houses over the ocean as well that we add in a little bit later on. But these condos, what I really wanted from these was small blocks. So you could imagine yourself going throughout the resort and saying, oh, I'm staying in the yellow block, or I'm staying in the red block, wherever it might be. So these wall-to-wall assets for this were absolutely perfect. They've got those, well, you could say horrendous tile decals on the wall, but they work super well because we can select the colours for each little block and make it seem like it's its own kind of self-contained unit. And the fact that they come with the very small pools and verandas I think is a really nice touch to make it feel like you've got things to do around your block that you're staying in, as well as of course across the whole resort. So the other larger assets that I wanted to incorporate into here were more entertainment based. So we start off by using the gym from the Green Cities DLC, which just works perfectly as an actual gym for our resort, which I think is quite a necessary entertainment activity feature for our guests. Of course, you would expect if you went to a luxury resort to have gym facilities. We also add in the sauna next to it, and then a wide selection of actually parks which I have made myself in the asset editor. So we start off with the food truck park there, and then a couple of different playground areas. Again, I think children's play areas are really important for this. I'd like to see it as a family style resort, maybe with some more secluded adult areas, which we can come on to later on. So we have a few different playgrounds in there. I also decided to add one of the lake assets as well, which I thought would be a nice touch for maybe a quieter stroll around the lake away from some of the hustle and bustle that we have going around the resort, as a slightly quieter area there. And of course a couple of tennis courts to support our sports and fitness centre in that area. And I had a little bit of trouble getting these in because they weren't quite aligned to the same height, so the decals weren't showing through properly. But aligning the height with Move It fixed this, and then I think they work really, really nicely against our coastal road there. And the final big park element that we add for the moment is also the riding stables. I was imagining the guests could maybe take a leisurely horse ride up and down the beach or something like that. So that's why I added that in here, and I think it works quite nicely. So now we come on to the start of our major oceanfront chalet session, shall we say. So we start off by actually using the hotel from the Hotels and Retreats DLC, which expands out into the water. Wonderful little asset, especially with the little boats around it as well. But this asset has a lot of issues. It just sinks straight into the ocean whenever I place it down. So I actually found a workaround. If you unlock the segments of the pathway with Move It or with Network Multi-Tool, then you can actually freely move the nodes and get them to the correct height, so it's nice and level and sitting above the water's surface, not sinking into it. So a little bit fiddly to get these in looking really nice, but actually in the end it wasn't too tricky with that little trick with Move It, and also deleting out the road connection so that we could have our pedestrian roads in there. So we have two of these in, and then I actually decided to kind of vary it up a little bit by using some of the sub-buildings of the hotel. So you can get just the ocean chalet part of it, the ocean hotel rooms part of it, if you search for sub-buildings and find it and search for hotels. And I placed a couple of these up against the waterfront around the same area, but just not quite as far out, so it doesn't have the big pier going out to them, which I think helped to add a little bit of variation to the area. And then before I come on to my like custom waterfront chalets, the real luxury ones that are facing out into the middle of the ocean, we also add in a couple of stilt houses, which I'm imagining would be family residences, probably self-catering or something like that, where it's maybe a little bit more expensive, hanging right out over the ocean with the whole big apartment to yourself. So they've got their own little section of the beach just for 6 of these assets, and that's it. So that's all that's available across the whole resort of these kind of apartments essentially that we have over the ocean here. So then coming on to, I think, probably my favourite part of this whole build actually, with the exception of the pool area, which we'll come to a little bit later, which is the custom built oceanfront chalets. So I see these as a little bit more luxurious than the ones that we had in the actual hotel asset themselves. These are Paradise Island assets from the workshop. Lovely, lovely little houses. Now, connecting these up into the ocean was a massive challenge, so I spent a while trying to figure out what would be the ideal technique for this, and I really wanted to have it look like a proper boardwalk with some of the assets that I've actually already got in Solitude. So I decided to use these wooden pier assets, which kind of aren't perfect because they are relatively long, so some of our lines look a little bit jaggedy and kind of, you've got too harsher corners in some elements of it, and you've also got these fishing nets which I can't remove, but I don't know, maybe they add a nice little touch here. But I wanted to create a really organic shape with these, so I started by laying these out in kind of a curvy fashion, some slightly closer to the shore, some much further out, some extra little branches onto this as well for individual houses to sit on, because I didn't want this area to feel too crowded. I wanted this to feel like the real ultimate luxury paradise type area of the actual resort. So I laid down the boardwalks to start off with, and then I went ahead and moved in all of our chalets, and getting these to the right height I think was pretty tricky here, because they have little steps that go down into the water as well. I guess so you can climb back up if you've jumped off your platform to go for a swim. So trying to get that all the right height, especially with a moving water surface, was a little bit tricky, but we got there in the end, lined up to our boardwalks as well. So I went ahead and placed these all in, and these are perfect assets for this. Like the stilt houses, they don't kind of move the terrain with them, so you can put them really far out into the ocean and they'll be absolutely fine. Now I know what you're thinking at this stage is, how is anyone actually going to access these? Because these are functional low residential houses, I would add. So I definitely want people to be able to get to them. So I'm going to come on to that in a second. Yeah, but for now, we're going to place them in really nice and spaciously, making sure that each chalet has absolute access to the ocean, which is unimpeded. And most of these chalets are going to stick out in the direction where they're looking out into the big ocean, as it were, rather than towards the shore. So you're getting these just amazing views out into the big wide blue ocean out there. Maybe you'll see some dolphins passing or something cool like that. This is like the epitome of luxury of the resort, is what I'm imagining for this. And then the next part of the build was to add in access, as I've mentioned, to these houses. So even though we can use the spawn points mod to move all of the spawn points onto the street, which I do actually do to make sure the garbage and that kind of trucks can actually, or the police actually in fact, can reach them, because we're in a pedestrian area. You don't really see the garbage trucks coming and going, unfortunately, but the police definitely, and the ambulances and things like that, need to reach the residences. So I used spawn points to move all of those, and then decided to use an invisible path running all the way along our boardwalk so that pedestrians could walk freely to and from their houses. And this works so well. I wasn't actually sure if it would work when I first tried it, but it absolutely does. So you can see here the way I did it was actually placing in a concrete path first, and the reason for that is because clearly I can't see an invisible path, so I don't know if it's the right height, and I wanted the pedestrians really to be actually walking on the boardwalk. So I used the concrete path first, got all of that nicely aligned and into position, covering the entire boardwalk. And then we upgrade it to an invisible path so it just disappears, and all we can see is the lovely boardwalk, with the exception of the entrances where we do use a raised gravel path to get up to the edge of our invisible path essentially. And yeah, that's it really. They've got access to their residences, they can walk there, the spawn points are all fixed, and it works gloriously. So you can see here, we've actually got it functioning. We've actually got a couple of residents walking along our boardwalk, and okay, in some places it's not 100% perfect because the path is very slightly wider than it, So occasionally you have a resident kind of walking through the air, but it is what it is, or indeed walking on water actually when they first come out of their houses. But I love it. I love it. I love the fact that people are walking up to these oceanfront chalets. So super pleased with that. So at this stage, we're probably over the halfway point, so I will just drop a very gentle reminder to drop me a like and a comment if you are enjoying the video. It is really, truly greatly appreciated. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you're new to the channel and you'd love to see more detailed Cities Skylines content. So the next part of our build was adding in yet more things to do and entertainment. Now I thought a big part of being on a luxury resort like this is not only the kind of activities that we've added with some of the park areas and the gym, and we've of course got pools coming, do not worry, they are very much going to happen. But we also want an absolute ton of bars, a little bit of shopping, various different cafes they can visit, nightclubs, that sort of thing, to keep people really heavily entertained. So you can see me adding this all in here, and this is actually in a pretty functional location as well, because again, the Ocean Chalet hotels need lots of shopping in order to be actually efficient. So in the end, I managed to get these hotels up to 100% efficiency, so I was pretty pleased with that. They don't require any offices, kind of probably for obvious reasons, so that worked pretty well for us here. So really what I use for this is actually a lot of the Africa in miniature DLC commercial assets, which just are absolutely perfect for a beachside resort like this. And also King Leno's mall assets as well from the content creator pack. Don't forget, you can pick these up via my instant gaming link in the description below for really great prices, which also helps support the channel. But the mall assets, again, I went through very carefully selecting the ones with kind of rooftop bars and tables and seating and things like that to very much feel like it's a cafe or a restaurant, and you've got a whole variety of different places to choose from to eat your meals. I'm sure there's probably some indoor luxury restaurant in the main hotel building as well, of course. And then we sort of finish that off with a little bit of nightlife. So we've got some leisure buildings in here as well as a few tourist buildings. And some of these assets being close to the water produce some really ugly terraforming issues on our beach, particularly with our cliff texture being dark green. So a few little rocks went a long way to help cover those up. And then finally we are coming on to the main pool area here. So you will see in the time lapse a little bit later on and in the finished product that I do add in a few more extra pool areas to the resort, so there's not just this main one. But this is definitely the key area, shall we say. It turns out pretty cool in the end actually. So I decided to use Sully's pool assets that we used in the water park for this. So we're just putting in the pool edge now and getting the shape right, which was kind of tricky. I almost forgot how to use these, I think. It's been so long since I did the water park. So it was a little bit of trial and error, shall we say, when I was putting it together, but we did get there eventually. So we put down the edges of the pool, kind of make sure that's a sort of semi-reasonable height to the terrain around it, and then also added in terraforming networks in the bottom of the pool so that we could get the edges really nice around our pool edge boundary essentially, and not see any landscape through the decals that we place in for the bottom of the pool. So these are fantastic assets. Please do show Sully some love for these assets. Again, they are just so awesome. Like, you cannot get this type of pool on the workshop without Sully, like a custom made pool like this. Just absolutely brilliant. Love it. And then we use a few more terraforming networks on the outside of the pool to make sure everything's really nice and level and neat, which was pretty tricky indeed. And now you'll see we're adding a few tiki bars, of course, which are absolutely necessary around our pool, as well as a couple of the Africa in miniature DLC assets. So the larger one that I'd already placed I thought would be perfect for a changing room, and then these small little huts, maybe private shower rooms or something like that. That was maybe what I was thinking by it. But really this pool area comes together with all of the detailing, which we are coming on to now. So I will shut up for a little bit and let you enjoy some of the finer touches to our resort before we come back and review everything that we've done. welcome to our yet to be named resort. Please do let me know your name suggestions for the whole island and for the resort in the comments below. Still yet to name it, so we need a suitably FewCandy style name for our resort. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, here we go. So let's just start at the entranceway over here. We've got a little office block to feed into this hotel, which is still only at about 56% rating. It's very hard. I don't really want to spam a load of shops around here or a load more offices, so this is what it is. Got two little office buildings here. Really love this little veranda on it, so that's just adding a very simple prop kind of corridor shelter thing onto the front of the building, which I think just adds to it actually, like helps to sit it in front of the big hotel a little bit more. It does kind of block the view when you come around the corner, but I think some kind of admin building is needed for our very fancy design resort, as it were. A couple of little seats out the front here. Really love actually how this fountain area's come together too. Just adding a couple of fountain props into these two back to back. A few horrendous tiles. I know a lot of people will debate these. You're either going to like it or you're not, but I like it. It's a design hotel after all, so we're going for some fancy art design out the front. With these little plants as well, just adding this splash of colour into it with the big California palm trees. Yeah, really loving this. Lots of people waiting for the shuttle bus as well, which I have now extended down to the front of the hotel, so that's good to see. Oh, here it comes, in fact. There we go. Oh, that one's going. Yeah, we've got two stops here, one for either directions. There we go. I did add in a few little paths underneath these walkways, and yeah, quite enjoying our very scary looking security guard as people walk straight through my barriers. But there we go. Yeah, I love that they can walk through the bottom of the hotel now with our security checkpoint right there. Very much enjoying that. And this little section's worked out pretty nicely as well, again with our security checkpoint here too, just coming out into our kind of you shouldn't use this road. That's what I was thinking here with our security entrance. A couple more back-to-back offices actually here alongside our pedestrian service point, and that kind of rounds off really the front of the hotel over here. Gosh, yeah, where do I even begin on this one? I actually added in this extra little kind of, this is a workshop hotel out here, just for some extra waterfront housing. These aren't quite as fancy as the oceanfront chalets that we have, but it works quite nicely, I think. Particularly like down here close to the big pool area, I think is a good location for it. And then we've got the main beach out here. Now, I actually went into the asset editor and created myself a little beach asset, so I didn't have to place down quite so many props. And I discovered that in the asset maker, you can only place down, well, I don't know if it's this size of asset, 64 props or trees. So I ran out of space. So I did have to add a couple of my own into here, but it works pretty nicely. We have got a couple of deck chairs, that's what they're called, in the ocean, so let's maybe just move this back a tiny touch. They're still in the water, but there we go. But I think it works pretty nicely. They should be somewhat functional. I can't actually see anyone using them, so maybe they're not. We do have hang around markers here though to bring people down onto the beach, and of course the benches are definitely functional. We can see them all kind of sitting there. And then we've got the yellow block of condos in front of our two little beach volleyball areas here as well. Again, adding more activity into the hotel. And the yellow block sits here. We've got the red block back here. We've got the blue block over there. Of course, we've then got the kind of oceanfront apartments, the oceanfront chalets, and then the various other chalets looking out onto Solitude Island over this side. So much accommodation, but yeah, really like how these little condo blocks turned out actually. I didn't do too much detailing around them, just added in a tiny touch of lighter undergrowth and some trees really around it, and then just kind of left it as is. I love the little pools hidden away in there, particularly with these parks in front of it as well, really nice. Let's talk about the pool area. So I did actually spam a few little commercial outlets here to try and help the hotel, and it doesn't look too bad. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's okay. The pool itself, I wish people used it, but I did put a few little pathways through the pool area. I can see some people walking through it down this side, so hopefully we will get a few more people doing that, but I think it works pretty nicely. little African huts here. These are what I'm kind of thinking are the main changing rooms. I kind of feel like that is with the circles going around it. We've also got an entrance out the back into the pool. Like, I think that could be some toilets, changing rooms for the pool facilities here. We've got so many tables and so many deck chairs all the way around. It is flashing a bit nastily. I have to apologise for that. I don't know what's going on. Maybe if we look from here it's a little better. No, it's definitely not. We'll zoom out slightly further away. So yeah, tons of tables, tons of deck chairs, umbrellas, you name it, all around our pool. And I think it's worked really well. I love this little octagon asset on the corner as well. Complements our tiki bars quite nicely. But it feels pretty busy and pretty nice. I attempted to do something with this horrendous concrete shelter by adding some greenery on the top, and it looks awful and the undergrowth keeps disappearing. So I may change that slightly. But I wanted this to be more of a sort of formal eating area as opposed to the rest of our kind of tiki tables, if we want to call it that. I love the little waterfall as well, very akin to what we did in the water park. We've got various nightclubs everywhere. So we've got one here, and I'm pretty sure we still do have another one down there as well. So you can take your pick of evening entertainment. As you walk around, it's pretty nice. Like, we've got so many different cafes and extra buildings for, yeah, the kind of entertainment element again. The staff area nicely hidden out the back here. We do have the path connected up now, so people can walk to and from that little area. Not directly through the security gate, but yeah, that is what they're doing. But it feels pretty nice as you sort of walk around at street level. Really enjoy how this sports centre sits in. Actually, we've bobbed off the car parking spaces in the middle here, so these planters sit either side of the street, and I think it adds a really nice dynamic, particularly when we've got a nice little isolated pool area over here, so you can walk down to the beach down this side. There is a functional path in there. Of course, the sauna if you want to burn in the, the heat of Solitude. Got little hidden parks, the tennis courts, yeah, another little food truck park area in here. So it all feels quite busy. There's lots to do spread out across the whole park, because obviously the residences are everywhere. So you don't kind of have to travel too far to get to a pool or to get to a playground or that sort of thing, or a cafe for your food, which I think is pretty good. And then of course we've got this row of cafes and shops in the middle here. I'm kind of thinking this is the main sort of strip of alternative restaurants to whatever's in the main hotel building. Really enjoy how this looks. Unfortunately, some of my recording I forgot to press record, clearly. It's actually what happened, so I didn't record it at all. But I created this little area out the back here, just some ruined texture with some dirt decals over it to rough it up slightly, just to create a kind of like non-beach side sitting area. It's not like the most fancy place in the world with crates and things around it, but it's sort of an extra little back area for people to go if they don't want the hustle and bustle of pools. We've got this other pool complex over here again, which I don't think was recorded. I'm very sorry. I mean, it is the same thing over and over. Tiki bars, African miniature tables and chairs, lots of deck chairs all around our pools, and a couple of palm trees in this one as well to bring that tropical island vibe up to the pool area over here. And then of course the lake, which can be a little bit of a quieter area with a bit more greenery around it, and leaving a little bit of open green space back here as well in case people want to kick a ball around or something like that. And then I've tried to make these a little bit more segregated, so we've got kind of the rocks here to signify the end of the main beach area as we come on to our little stilt houses over the ocean. And then of course, yes, there is someone walking on it. There's a couple of people walking on it. I love this. I'm so pleased people actually walk across our decking to these houses. It really has made my week. Apart from these fishing boxes here, if we could just get rid of those, that would be wonderful, but unfortunately we cannot bob those off. So yeah, it's lovely to see these people come in and go in, walking all along our piers. Yeah, love this. This would probably be my dream destination for a holiday, just sat here with nothing but ocean and calm and quiet. Well, it's quite rough ocean, but it's not that calm. And unfortunately, these aren't quite low enough, but you'll see the water does occasionally rise up to the bottom of them, so it's a matter of making sure that our piers aren't flooding, unfortunately. It's not 100% perfect, but it's not too bad. I mean, this one, the bottom of it is in fact in the pool here actually. And there are various sort of smaller stalls around the place. So we've got this little one here. We've got another tourism, or 1x1 tourism for the entrance into our hotel over here as well. Yeah, it all kind of works quite nicely. I really like this, the dirt raised path going out, so you can kind of hide the end of it inside the building. So I think that works pretty well to get out to those sub-buildings, even though they're completely non-functional, purely decorative. Of course, we've got the riding stables here, and then I actually decided to leave this end of the beach pretty much completely untouched. I've used a small resort assets. This is actually one asset that I've added a couple of little extra props to. Remove some car parking spaces on it and things like that. But this is one asset off the workshop that I think just sits in quite nicely at the end here. And then you go on to absolute pure paradise, right? Except for all the mega ships running by. If you can kind of ignore those and look out in this direction. Yeah, this is where I would want to be. Out here, alone, on a tropical beach. That would be my dream. So yeah, there we go. We have got our resort build in. Of course, I'm zoomed out so far that you can't see any of the props, but they are there. That's extra decoration. Really, really pleased with how this has come out. So this island is actually now kind of complete. And what a complete kind of change in dynamic from our dirty old town centre over here to our kind of luxury resort at the other end. Very much enjoying that dynamic indeed. So for today, that is going to be it. Let me know your name suggestions in the comments below. And please don't forget to drop a like on a video. That is greatly appreciated. But that's all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.